Hello, I'm Adrian McKeown, and yeah, who knows what's going to happen in the next like 3 hours. But yeah, basically, I thought I'd have a play around with some live coding. The last few, I guess, a couple of months during lockdown, I've been experimenting. I mean, I've been playing around with OpenStreetMap for like over a decade. And the last couple of months, I've been looking at the kind of 15-minute city idea that Carlos Morenos, if I will get his name wrong, but over in Paris, they've been thinking like, oh, wouldn't it be good if all of your everyday needs, so not everything that you might want, but like going to the shops to get kind of groceries and going to work and the park and things like that. What if all of that was within 15 minutes of where you live? And by 15 minutes, they mean 15 minutes walking or maybe 15 minutes cycling. And that just seems kind of a nice, interesting idea around sort of active travel and kind of a different way, different sort of lens to look at cities under. I mean, not just cities, but I live in Liverpool, a city here in the northwest of the UK, or northwest of England, in the UK, and so I've been, like just chipping away at spinning up a website that takes a load of OpenStreetMap data and then just draws some 15-minute isochrones to show you where you can get to within 15 minutes of various points around the city, just to kind of start having conversations around it, just kind of explore what it's like. Maybe the city's already a 15-minute city and we just need to start looking at it that way. Maybe there's some things we can do. The city is putting a load more bike lanes in as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which is really cool. I do a lot of cycling around the city. I don't have a car these days, so walking and cycling is how I get about, and the trains if I want to go further afield, which I have not done since before lockdown. So yeah, it's a bit of a crazy time, isn't it? But anyway, I've been basically sitting here in my flat, working on this sort of stuff for a while. And I've also been watching people on YouTube and Twitch and things, and kind of thought, well, given that I'm doing this stuff anyway, maybe I should just start live coding. Just kind of have whoever was interested come along for the ride. And so so here we are. Like, we'll see if it works. We'll see if it doesn't. I have no idea because I haven't quite got things set up right at the moment. If anybody is actually watching. Because I haven't got that window visible. So yeah, very early days in my live coding stuff. And what else? That's probably about it. I guess actually the other thing, I'm kind of interested in sort of more collaborative live coding. So the kind of background and stuff you can see at the minute isn't just my webcam. It's actually a screen grab of Big Blue Button, which is some awesome open source video conferencing software. This one's supplied by Meet.coop, who I joined recently to get access to it, which is really cool. And so I'm like, there's basically, this is also, as well as being live streamed on YouTube, there's a kind of live video thing going, which is probably going to make my computer just run ridiculously slow and might make it impossible to develop. We'll see. But basically I thought I'd have that session running, and then if anybody wants to actually join in with the live coding, so it's kind of like a live streamed what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? Like hackathon or something. Like, not that hackathon's great kind of option for stuff, but like it's an option, great term for things. Anyway, like if other people wanted to join in and do stuff, then we could chat on the Big Blue Button instance, and then I can switch and they'll be able to be seen on the live stream, and then they can always share their screen on Big Blue Button, and then it'll show through on the live stream, and stuff like that. And and mostly what's going to happen is it's going to be me just doing what I would normally do, but talking to myself, and making my computer really slow, I expect. But we'll see. My mate Ross has said he might kind of pop in, so we'll see if he turns up, and take it from there. So I guess it might be useful to show what I'm talking about. Where am I so far? So let me flip to desktop view, and that worked as well. It's awesome. You're going to get to see lots of kind of behind the scenes OBS Studio screen grabs, because I haven't worked out all my nice hotkeys to keep all of that hidden. So you're going to get to see behind the curtain a little bit as well, and it's all going to be messy and janky because this is the first time I've done any of this. Yeah, actually what I should do is work out whether I've got my stuff lining up properly with my nice screen grab. I need to keep OBS Studio at the top so that I can actually see what happens when I click on this window, and whether it is all, like, I think, yeah, it's a bit too far wide because I've got my chat. So yeah, the thing on the top, on the right hand side, is the YouTube chat video. So if the chat window even. So if you're watching, then stick something in the live chat, and say hello. And I appear not to be signed in to chat. That's going to be great. So yeah, let me just flip back to standby for a second, so you don't get to see me type my password in, and I'll be back with you momentarily. Aha! Excellent. I don't know if you can hear me at the moment, Ross. You probably can. I'm probably streaming on standby, which is like still doing the audio. But now I have signed in, the chat is actually sort of working. There we go. So let me just move that over there. Okay, I'm back, and now I don't have this window. Oh, because it's changed name or something? Why? Why is that window disappeared? This is the chat window. Right, so it knows that it exists. I can go to the properties of it, and I can pick the right window, which presumably has changed name because I've reloaded it. Oh, it's because Are you joking me? Oh. Yeah, so what it's done is it's broken me out of the iframe. That is rubbish. Like, yeah, it's totally broken me out of the iframe. Oh no, there we go. Right, that is working. Excellent. But I can't say anything back. Okay, I'm just going to talk to you. I can't type things in the chat window. I'm going to work that out for the next time. But there we go. I don't want to save those changes, and get that out of the way. Okay, so there we go. Right, let's get rid of OBS Studio and back to a web browser. So if we go to 15minutecity.mcqn.com, this is the website where I've been like developing everything, and so you can kind of see as it loads. We've got a map of Liverpool. Let me zoom out for a little bit, and you can kind of probably see roughly where we are. So there's the River Mersey, and if I zoom out a bit further, well, I suppose I'm going to have to zoom out quite a way before you're going to see the UK as a recognisable thing. But let's do that for completeness. and I need to fill. I've got loads. I've got 3 hours to fill. No, hopefully I'm going to do some actual work at some point. Maybe I just need to always imagine that Ross is watching or somebody's watching that I'm going to talk to, because that's going to make it's going to make it a lot easier if I imagine there's somebody listening to the rambling that I'm going on about. So anyway, so yes, let's zoom in on Liverpool, and then you can see there are a bunch of kind of weird blobs over certain bits. So the city centre is kind of down here where it says Liverpool, understandably. There are then a whole range of kind of districts. I mean, what districts do you use is a conversation I've been having with people, and mostly as I've kind of trying to find all the different centre points, because it's a nice way to just have a conversation, which is mostly actually something I think I've picked up from Ross, who's watching at the minute, because he's an artist and he does art, but artworks that kind of encourage engagement and conversations with people, and so you use the art as a kind of, not as a prop's not the right word for it, but it's like it's a device, that's a better word. It's a device to encourage conversations and to start conversations on certain topics, and so this, like the different districts, is one of those devices I'm using in this, which works quite nicely. So I'll post something on Twitter and then be like, I need to find the center point of, like, there's a load of gaps here, which isn't because there aren't any districts there that need, it's that, like, if I scroll down on this side, you see there's a whole bunch of districts of Liverpool that I don't have any data for because I haven't defined what the center points are yet, and that's because I live in the city centre, kind of near Prince's Park ward, I don't feel like, one, I don't know all of the city well enough to go like, this is the centre point of Edge Hill. Like, I know where Edge Hill is, but like, where's the centre of it? I don't know. That's a kind of woolly concept. And also, what are all the different areas? Like, they're sort of, it's all a bit more kind of folk knowledge, in that and you have conversations about like different bits of town, and different people call them slightly different things, and different people have slightly different ideas where they are, and obviously kind of politicians have like or the kind of administrative parts of the city and the council have like very defined wards, and so when I've spoken to some of the local politicians about these things, then they're like, well, do you want wards? And I remember having chat with one of them, and they were like, well, you've already done, and I didn't think I wanted wards, because I'm like, wards would give me a nice simple, like, it's already worked out, somebody's worked out where all of the areas are, and I could just go, what's the centre point of that geographic area? I could get the computer to work that out for me, and I could use those. But like, that's where some council person or some official has come along and drawn lines and kind of gone, yes, this is part of such and such, and that bit, the other side of the pavement is a different ward, and so and people don't think like that. I suppose it's much more like Flickr did a thing where they could kind of define where different bits of London were, if I remember rightly, back in like the late 2000s, based on like tags and stuff from the photos, which was just a kind of bottom up sort of like, well, people took photos and called these different bits of London different things, and so we can kind of map them and go, like, this is really very definitely a certain part, and then it gets kind of fuzzy and it starts to bleed into like the next area over, and then now you're definitely in the next area over, sort of thing. And the cities are the same because they're all just full of people. So that's where I'm getting these, and I needed a list of them to kind of start with. And Liverpool Architectural Society, like 10 years ago, that sort of time frame, they did a project that split the city into 32 different districts, or neighbourhoods, to kind of think about things in a similar sort of way, or at least to look at things in a kind of a neighbourhood level rather than a whole city. And so like I remember that they'd done that, so I just went and found found my blog post about it, which seemed to be the best record on the internet of them having done this project, which is, yeah, always do good websites and leave them up and don't change the URLs and don't kill off. Anyway, that's a whole separate 3-hour rant. But yeah, got the list of districts or neighborhoods from them as a starting point, and I might lose some of them eventually. And all of this, like, basically this just boils down to a JSON file that gets thrown into some code that generates all this stuff. So changing where the center point is or adding center point is pretty easy to do. I mean, that's you can see that sort of happened up at the top end of the city here, with kind of like Bootle was in the original list of 32. That was on the out. Basically they were kind of concentric rings, kind of sort of spreading out from the center. And Bootle was the kind of furthest north that things got, but because one of the people I've been chatting to about it, Duncan, lives up in like Crosby or Waterloo or somewhere. He was like, "Oh, can we have like further north?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's fine. You just need to tell me what the areas are and where the middle of them is." And so we've got yeah, these ones further up, which I think is basically this. Yeah, the website. The website is a work in progress. I really need to get to a point where the map just fills the whole of the viewport, and then you can scroll this sidebar up and down, or the sidebar's tabbed, or anyway, we'll come to that a bit later. And so yeah, so that's why there's some that go a bit further up, and then I might well like get rid of Clubmore. You can see that Clubmore, the data's missing, and that's because I had a kind of I've always joked that like Clubmore doesn't exist, which it obviously does, but like this bit of Liverpool that I'm zooming in on now is a bit that I know really well from or that at least that I'm really familiar with. I suppose I don't know it very well, but I know I've been through it lots, because growing up in Rainford, which is kind of just off 15 miles outside of the city centre, like a little village on the edge of Merseyside, the way that we would come into town if we were coming to Liverpool is we would come down, where have I got? Yeah, down these lines for a bit, but then we'd come along Muirhead Avenue, which is this, yeah, this route along here, and through Tubrook, I suppose through along the kind of border almost of Norris Green and West Derby. Actually, that might. Oh yeah, Muirhead Avenue is that one. There we go. That makes more sense. So yeah, come down the East Lancs and then kind of come along here and along Muirhead Avenue and through. So like yeah, Muirhead Avenue is kind of the border between West Derby over here and Norris Green, which I mean Norris Green, like this is also still Norris Green up here, but the shops and things for Norris Green Broadway is kind of around here, which is why that's the centre point for the Norris Green isochrones, and yeah, we'd come down Muirhead Avenue through Tubrook, and then that like West Derby Road and stuff, which would then bring you into the city centre, and like Clubmore kind of fits in the kind of, yeah, it's sort of in between Norris Green, I suppose. Yeah, as you can see on the OpenStreetMap here, Clubmore's listed as like this bit here, but there's no really obvious like centre for Clubmore. Like it feels to me like I'd never heard of it, like, or I'd sort of, yeah, you'd maybe hear mention of it, but like it never seemed to have a defined area. So and I was chatting to one of the former councillors for Clubmore, and he was sort of like, yeah, the centre of Clubmore is probably kind of Broadway, the same as Norris Green, and it's like, well, is that not the same place then? Like, I mean, it's definitely going to be the same place as far as me drawing little isochrones where you can get to, because they're very much based on a centre point, and if the centre points are the same, then the isochrones will be the same. So yeah, we might we might lose Clubmoor, or maybe somebody else will come along and go, no, Clubmoor's this, like, this is the centre of Clubmoor, because that's the nice thing. I get to have conversations with various other people in the city to find out, who live in different bits of the city, and to find out where they think of as the centre. And so Jim Noakes told me about Norris Green and I think Chew Brook, which I had kind of thoughts about, given that we drive down this fairly main, like, sort of dual carriageway through, and all the shops and stuff are along there. So it's like, well, that's probably the centre of Chew Brook, but maybe it's off. I could, because these days I've cycled through bits more of it of late, but very much like all of my growing up, we just drive down this road. So I got to see that road lots, and that was Chew Brook to me. But it didn't extend like either side of that road, because that was all I ever kind of explored or saw as we were driving through. So it was good to get confirmation from Jim about that, and then bumped into Andrew Beattie when I was cycling up through Waltham one day, and had a chat with him and Terry Segura. There's this thing, I know everybody's Twitter handles rather than their actual names, and they had a bit of conversation about where's the centre of Walton. And it's like, well, okay, so we've got centre at the moment. Then there's bits like Kirkdale. So I don't know. I cycle through Kirkdale quite a lot since lockdown, because I've been mostly heading north north and east in my bike rides. I do kind of probably do 17 miles later on today, kind of up through Bootle and down and round through Walton and Norris Green and West Derby and Dovecot and stuff, and then back round to the city centre. Like Kirkdale I kind of know a bit now, but I don't know it well. Maybe it's where the station is, but there's not a lot else by the station, and there are a few bits where there are more shops and stuff, and so maybe that's the centre. Maybe the centre's a bit further down this way. I don't know. I need to find a local basically, and just be like, where do you think the centre of Kirkdale is, and then I can put Kirkdale into it. I asked the Scotty Press, which is the kind of something like the UK's longest running community newspaper or something. It's been going since the 60s, maybe even earlier. Don't know. But that covers Everton and Vauxhall and stuff. And so I had a chat with Joel about where the centre of Vauxhall is. And so this one is Vauxhall, and this one is Everton, and then you've got Anfield over here. And it's kind of interesting that you start to see these. I should probably talk about what all these weird blobs are, shouldn't I? Rather than maybe you can read it from over here. But these are isochrones, which basically there's so all of the data being shown here is from OpenStreetMap, and then there's another kind of ancillary project, which makes it sound, I suppose, compared to the size of OpenStreetMap, it is quite small, but it's still a big undertaking. There's a project called Open Trip Planner, which a bunch of cities around the world use for their kind of route planning apps, and spinning one of them up for Liverpool is kind of an interesting thing that I'm wondering about at some point, maybe doing. But what it does is it will do route planning, so you can give it 2 points on a map and ask it to plot the route between them, and work out how long it's going to take you to walk or cycle or get the bus or drive. And the nice thing about Open Trip Planner is it will do multimodal trips, which is part of the reason why I wanted to have a play around with it, as well as for doing these isochrone stuff that I'll get to in a second. And the multimodal stuff is that if you've used Citymapper at all in the UK, like I use it when I'm down in London, they don't cover Liverpool, but you can kind of use it and say, like, I want to get to I'm wherever I am and I want to get to this other place, and then it'll give you the different options, like, well, if you want to walk, it's going to take this long. if you want to go by car, it's going to take this long, and and it can plot the route for you for both of those things. And also, it's like, well, you can walk for a bit and get a tube for a little bit, and then get the bus for this section, and then you'll get there. And it's that kind of, the multimodal bit is just switching modes of transport. So it's like walk for a bit, get a tube for a bit, or and we haven't got a tube in Liverpool. We've got underground in some bits of it, but mostly, so there's a reasonably good kind of train network. But yeah, it could be like, get the train for this bit, then get the bus for that bit, then walk this last section. And that's the multimodal in the kind of switching different sorts of transport. And one of the other things that OpenTripPlanner can do is it can then just generate loads of routes. I guess I don't know exactly how the algorithm works. I haven't needed to. It's just some software. It's a big black box that I could go and poke around in if I wanted to. The source code is all there, but I don't need to, so I don't. Especially because it's a monolithic Java app. There was one point when I was trying to build it and gave up because it was just complicated, and I'm not familiar with Java development, so I got fed up with the amount of googling and poking around I was needing to do. But anyway, one of the other things it can do is it can basically just go and find loads of routes and sort of work out. So you can give it different problems to solve, I suppose. So rather than saying, I want to get from here to here, like what route do I need to take? You can also say, I am at this point, where can I get to in 10 minutes? Or where can I get to in 15 minutes? And I want to walk. Or I want to walk and bike. Or I want to bike and I can throw the bike on the train as well. But so for this, all of these kind of lines are the kind of where you can get to in 15 minutes walking from a certain from the center point of each neighborhood. And so the red circles are I can't actually, my screen isn't big enough to, my browser isn't big enough for some of this, but basically there's the walking one. So the city centre one is centred on St George's Hall, if I remember rightly, and so I can toggle things on and off. So there you go, that's the walking isochrone for the city centre. So from St George's Hall, like, this is how far you can get in 15 minutes walking. And then there is also, actually if I click on this one, that's going to turn all of them off for city centre. I can turn all of them back on, and now we can get a blue one, which is actually hidden under this because the stylings, as I say, this is very much a work in progress. So there's a cycling tick box. There's another column of tick boxes for cycling as well, which isn't turned on by default, because as you can see, from the city centre you can cycle quite a long way, and so if you have all of the cycling ones turned on, there's just like a massive overlap and just blue everywhere, so it doesn't really tell you anything very useful like in the aggregate. It's useful for looking at for a single one like we are at the moment for the city centre. So it's like, this is where you can get to in 15 minutes on a bike in the city centre. So you can get down the docks. You can see obviously it's like there's the centre point, so it's the river makes it a bit skewed towards, like, you can get further east than you can west. If I drag that up a bit, that might look a little bit better. Although interestingly, although you can't do it at peak hours, and I haven't ever done it yet, you can at times cycle through the tunnel under the Mersey or the Queensway tunnel. You can't go under the you can't go through the Kingsway tunnel. So you can see that the Kingsway tunnel, there isn't anything over on the Wirral side, but there is a little tiny kind of beachhead of where you can get to cycling in 15 minutes from the city centre, because you could go through the tunnel. I guess the other thing to do would be to add, like if you could add getting the bus, or which wouldn't work for a bike, but also getting the train, and there's a railway tunnel underneath the river as well, and a bunch of stations, and then that would open up more of the Wirral, because you could get further in 15 minutes. But this is just looking at where you can get under your own steam rather than using any public transport at the minute. And then the green, so let me just turn all those. I have to get rid of the cycling one again for a minute. But the green isochrone is also looking at, if we want the city to be a city for everybody, there are whole groups of people who have pushchairs or are in wheelchairs or they're getting older or whatever, for whatever reason they use a walking frame or something like that, and they can't get as far. So we've also shown the reduced mobility stuff. So this is passing in. There's I think it's accessible equals yes or something option into the trip planner. I don't know exactly what that does for working out the routes, and I guess it will also be dependent on what the underlying data in OpenStreetMap is like, and how good that data is. But it's at least making a start, and we can always make the data better because it's OpenStreetMap and anybody can go and contribute and improve the data that's being used. But yeah, it's kind of doing okay. This is how far somebody who's in a wheelchair or who is maybe a bit older and can't move around as quickly can get. So you can set there's an accessibility option for the route planning, which presumably does something. I'm not sure exactly what. I guess it would avoid steps and things like that, I presume. And also there's a kind of walking speed, and so this is a slightly reduced walking speed as well. So the green ones give you that reduced mobility area. So yeah, and there's a whole chunks of the city that I haven't worked out where the centre points are for yet, but that's the basic website, and what I'm kind of playing around with, and then let me show you. Let's go and look at some source code. So all of the code is on GitHub, and like a few years ago, just like out of curiosity as much as and partly as a place to kind of store things, I thought it would be interesting to see if we had like a Liverpool organisation on GitHub, and so just created one because anybody can create an organisation. So this is totally unofficial, although what's official? I mean, the council aren't involved in this at all. They've seen it, they've seen bits of it, but this is very much, there's a whole bunch of locals who are kind of poking around in this, although it is predominantly me. Like it's a sort of a GitHub place where I do things that are kind of related to sort of civic tech, I suppose. There's a couple of interesting things just as a kind of diversion. Somebody should repository. So this is stolen from Does Liverpool, which is a kind of makerspace and kind of community that I'm part of and co-founded. So we've stolen the somebody should from the somebody should that Does Liverpool has, although Does Liverpool stole it from one of our members, Francis Irving, who started to basically built the design pattern, which is so it's a code repository. So it's where like GitHub is where software people store source code for things, which is what I'm going to show you in a minute for that. The source code for this website, and so how this website is built. And it's a place to keep it safe and to look at different versions of things and to do all of the kind of organizing the work around building a bit of software, whether it's a website or an app or some firmware for an Arduino or all sorts of things. And so mostly you have an area where you can put some code, and so this has two files in it. It has a readme.md and a civic.json. And as you can see, it's been going for 6 years now, and there isn't. So normally there'd be a whole load more code. We'll see in a minute when I get to the 15-minute city repository that there'll be a load more code and stuff in like this view. And this doesn't have very much code, and it mostly has a readme.md, which GitHub automatically pulls out and displays in the kind of home page. So it lets you do a bit of a explanation of what this repository is about, and usually you get instructions on how to build the software so that you can make your own version of it, and maybe some information about how to use it and things like that. If it's an application that you need to run and give it different parameters and things like that, it'll tell you like these are where you get different parameters, etc., etc. And so yeah, we've mostly just got a README that says like, you know, there isn't any source code here. And that's because one of the other things you get with a repository in GitHub or GitLab or lots of these sorts of things, there are lots of different issue trackers, is an issue tracker, because if you've used software, you'll know it will have bugs, and it may also, you know, be new features you might want to add and things like that. And so one of the ways that you can manage that is to have an issue list, which lets you, you know, create a new issue where you can say like, when I tried to click on the button over here, it just crashed, or the whole screen went pink, or like whatever problem there is with the software. You can create an issue, describe what happened, and then somebody like one of the developers can come along and say, okay, well, right, well, we've worked out what the problem is, you know, we've made some changes to the code, and now we've fixed it, and then you can test it and see that it works, and all that kind of stuff for managing how your any bugs and feature requests and things like that. And so does Liverpool, like, well, Francis started off having one for his house, which had things like, you know, the want to get new double glazing or something for one of the rooms, or the lock in the spare room is a bit kind of broken and might lock you in accidentally, stuff like that, so that he could keep a track of all those little odd jobs that needed doing around the house, and then he could put comments in that said things like, you know, I've got in touch with the plumber who's going to come next Thursday and give me a quote, and then he could put another comment sort of, you know, a week or so later, kind of going, the plumber came and he's told me it's going to be such and such an amount, and this needs doing and that needs doing, and I should not use the shower in the meantime, or whatever. And then, you know, the plumber would arrive, and then he could be like, yeah, this is done, the plumber sorts it all now, and could close it off, just to kind of keep track of what was being done and organise stuff. And so does Liverpool, we do the same sort of thing to keep the space running, so the community does most of the work in, or almost all of the work in running the space. And so when things go wrong, we raise an issue so that we can keep track of what we need to buy, and it lets other people dive in and work on things, so it kind of spreads the loads. It's not just one person going, oh, I need to fix the laser cutter, what do I need to do? I need to go off and find like some new mirrors and order them, and then make sure that I've tracked them down when they turn up, and then I need to fit them, and then you know, it lets one person kind of raise the issue of sort of like, the mirrors need replacing, and then another person can go and work out exactly what mirrors need to be bought, and then somebody else who's got permission to buy things, can go and buy the mirrors, and then when they turn up, they can put a comment on saying the mirrors have turned up, and then somebody else can be like, oh great, and they can come in and fit the mirrors, and then they can close the issue saying the mirrors are fitted and everything's great. And it's also a place where you can kind of keep that knowledge, so the next time the mirrors need replacing, you can go and find the old issue and find out where you got the mirrors from, on what size you wanted, and things like that. So it's kind of ends up, the closed issues become a repository of information and knowledge within the community as well. So I did, long story short, long story just continuing to be long. I spun up the same thing because that design pattern is kind of well established in the Does Liverpool community. So it was like, well, we should just do that for the city as well. So somebody should, if there's something that you think should be changed with Liverpool, then you can go and create a new issue and explain what it is you think needs to be done, and create it, and then who knows what will happen. Maybe somebody else will be able to come along and fix it. There have been, like, there aren't very many closed issues in this, so you can see the issues that have been closed, and some of those are kind of procedural stuff. So Alex had gone and worked out what labels we should use for things, I think, and we did go and fix the railings in set, or we put some stickers on to mark the railings. I think that was maybe got some nice stuff. Is there a photo? There isn't quite. Oh, there is a photo. There's a link to a Twitter page which should show a photo. So there are some low railings which in the dark in the winter it's hard to see that the railings are across the path, and you could cycle into them. And so I'd kind of found them, and like you can see these ones. So that's a normal railing height. Kind of there is the gate. So the gate's quite high, but then at the side there's a bit where you can cycle through it, but you need to notice that there are some low down dark blue against a kind of, and in the dark in the winter it's quite hard to see those. So I raised the issue. Martin went and stuck some reflective tape on it so it would reflect your bike light, so you could see that there was some damage, but it has been removed since, which is really annoying. It'd be nice to, and somebody's put loads of like super reflective tape on the big obvious gate, but not on these bits. Like it's very, another example of how everything is very car centric. So yeah, we should maybe I should reopen it and we should go and fix it again, but that did get fixed. So yeah, it's still a problem. It's become a problem again, so we could reopen it, but and then things like this. That was company. There's a little mini roundabout, or a little junction that probably should be a mini roundabout, and like somebody actually in the council went and had a look, and it turned out it was going to be super expensive. So it's like, okay, yeah, I don't think we care enough about that junction to want to spend like it was tens of or £100,000 or something. It was like stupid amount of money for the kind of inconvenience it causes. So so we figured we could close that one. So like that's just okay, fair enough. We've gone and looked at it, and actually it doesn't. Somebody else could come and reopen it and argue that no, it's really important and we should spend the money. But all of us involved in it so far had mostly said that seems fair enough. It's really expensive to fix that bit of the road, so let's leave it as it is. It's good, it's okay. And a lot of the open issues are like whenever I come across interesting things to go and play around with, kind of software wise, or see other projects that other people are doing, then I can kind of create new issues. So it's not just me creating the issues, but I do create quite a lot of them about different. Actually, we should close to have a restart party once a month, but at the moment the repair cafes are in pandemic lockdown. But that one has kind of happened. So there's a range of different things. Some of them are just like install some bits of software and play around with some things. Some of them are more like art bus stops and stuff. Be kind of cool. So there's a mixture of stuff that's kind of working on bits of software, finding bits of open data. Doing more actual interventions in the city, or having events and stuff around different to gather people together and stuff like that. And so a little while ago, there we go, 10th of May. This was some of my lockdown reading. Actually, I think mostly was read whilst I was at the laser cutter in Liverpool, laser cutting visors for the NHS to kind of try to keep people safe in the pandemic, because we did a big project to use our maker facilities to help out with the crisis. And whilst I was running the laser cutter, you've got a lot of time of just kind of watching a laser cutter head move around, cutting things and making sure it doesn't catch fire. So you can do some reading of stuff, and I was reading when we open this, Dan Hill's slowdown papers, and so that's where I found out about this 15-minute city thing, which seems to be becoming more prominent as more people are finding out about it, and so I just created an issue saying like, oh well, maybe we should do this, and this is the Liverpool Architectural Society kind of map that they'd done, that I was talking about earlier. Actually Seaforth goes, okay, so Seaforth is on the map. Bootle isn't the furthest north. There is another ring around the edge, but these are the different kind of areas that they'd listed. I think theirs is a bit more kind of graphic designy and sort of just they're in mostly the right places, but I guess, yeah, there's the Norris Green one's a bit further out but the centre of the Norris Green is definitely the kind of Broadway. So yeah, anyway. So then I started, and basically as I chipped away at it, I was putting comments on this issue of what I was doing and getting around with, and so I'd spent some time getting OpenStreetMap up and running, which actually was in a different issue already. I knew about it, so I'd gone and found this sort of stuff, and this is the default view of OpenStreetMap, where you can give it a certain point and it will draw a kind of contour line, I suppose, isochrones. So each of these is like 15 minutes bike ride from so this is where Does Liverpool is, and yeah, you've got 15 minutes walk and half an hour's walk will get you to this edge, and 3/4 an hour walk will get you into the Mersey, but also a bit further on, and so on. And then this is one looking at Anfield and zoomed out a bit, so you can see where you can get to in an hour or more of walking. But then if you go by bike, you can obviously get a lot further in 15 minutes. And actually this shows the multimodal stuff, which is quite nice, so it's zoomed out even further. So that's 15 minutes on the bike and half an hour, but you can actually get on one of the from Anfield. I don't know which you'd probably cycle to Lime Street and then get on the Wirral line to get through the tunnel and over onto here. So you can just in half an hour just kind of get into Birkenhead, but in 3/4 an hour you can kind of get further out and then also get into much more of the Wirral. I think at that point you start to see that basically my data, there are these weird bits at the edge, and I think that's an artifact of the fact that I haven't downloaded the entire OpenStreetMap dataset. I've just downloaded the dataset for Merseyside, and so I think these bits will be places where you're then into West Lancashire or Greater Manchester and Cheshire down this way. So there would be, if you gave more OpenStreetMap data to OpenStreetMap, obviously it would do a better job of drawing those isochrones further out. But because I've been mostly focused on kind of Liverpool, and never mind even through into sort of St Helens and places like that, then I've only got the data for kind of the Merseyside area, and so then I was kind of playing around with all these sorts of things, and then kind of a couple of weeks later I'd play around it again, and by this point it was like, okay, this is getting to be a thing rather than just a little thing to play around with. So I will spin up its own repository and make its own thing, and so I've been working out how we could how we can make a better website, how I can build this website, and show lots of different points, because obviously this, you can pick any point you want and generate these nice kind of maps, but you can only do one point at a time, and I wanted to do multiple points at once. So I did spend a bit of time trying to build OpenStreetMap from, because this is a website that's inside OpenStreetMap, so you can just download a big Java jar file and run it on a computer and then point a web browser at it. Well, you need to download a bit of some data for it to use, but it's actually quite easy to do. Just going and getting some data from OpenStreetMap, there are places where you can just download a subset of the data, so you could get you can get the whole world, you can get all of Europe, you can get all of the UK, you can get all of England, you can get all of the Northwest, you can get specific counties and things like that. They're all kind of broken up quite easily, so you can just go and download the bit you want, stick it on your computer somewhere, download the jar file, which is a Java archive sort of thing, like a Java application basically, and you need Java installed, but run that and it gives you this web browser interface, and then you can go and look at it and explore some stuff, and that's quite nice. So yeah, I spent a bit of time trying to build it because I was like, well, maybe I just need to change the web browser that's inside OpenTripPlanner. But that, yeah, proved difficult, and it's all in Java, which I don't, you know, I mean, I can kind of cobble stuff together in it because it's close enough to C++ that I know really well. But yeah, I'm not super familiar with Java, so after a bit of playing around on the 25th. Oh, actually, yeah. So I spent, I guess I was playing around with it mostly each weekend. So like on the 10th, I got OpenTripPlanner spun up, and that kind of initial like, oh look, I can make these nice maps, isn't it cool? And then the weekend after, I was trying to build. I spent the I don't know if it was the entire weekend or definitely a chunk of the weekend just getting to a point where I could build OpenTripPlanner from source rather than just downloading the jar. And it was just painful and it didn't work properly, and like, yeah, I didn't get to the bottom of what I was, because I was like, okay, I've spent a day or so like fighting with this and not really getting anywhere, and then actually found a different website, this one that's linked over here, which shows you, and you can see this looks a bit more like the 15-minute city one that I'd done, because one of the things you can do is you can use OpenTripPlanner to generate a GeoJSON file as it is, but basically generate that kind of isochrone outline for you, and then you can use some other software to load it in to do some other stuff. And so, this was using Jekyll, which is something that it's written in Ruby, which is something I'm super familiar with, and it's what I use for my mcqn.com website. It's a static site generator, so you run some stuff, it churns through all your files, builds a whole load of HTML and images and CSS and JavaScript and things like that you would have on a website, and then you just stick it on a web server and it just runs, and it doesn't do anything live. So it's quite a nice way of doing things to build websites if they don't need to be super interactive, or super interactive in certain ways. And so I was like, okay, that's interesting. So basically, when I discovered this, that gave me a kind of good way forwards to decide what to do with the 15-minute city website. And so, in order to do that, I spun up a new repository in the Liverpool, UK. So all of this stuff is open source. I have a security vulnerability that's just come in this morning to go and fix. But as you can see, there's a whole load more files here than there were in the last repository we looked at. And this is basically all of the source code that builds this website. And so there are a whole bunch of different things. I mean, there's a readme.md which then gets shown here, which gives me, as I've written a little bit of mostly just copy and pasted stuff from that original issue, and made a couple of notes about how we do some stuff. So if you wanted to join in and build any of this sort of stuff, then basically you could download or clone, as the term goes, which actually is clone it. So you could, if you've got a GitHub account, you could clone it. Actually, you probably don't even need a GitHub account to get it in the first place. You'd need that to be able to send any changes, submit any changes to me and stuff like that. But you could just get the source code yourself, and you could build your own version of the website. And that's probably more useful if you're going to do one for your city, or for somewhere else, or if you want to work on some of the stuff that I'm doing and chip away at things, that would be great. And basically, you'd need Ruby and Jekyll installed. We probably need a set of install instructions at some point as to how you'd go and build this. So I guess the first time somebody tries to work out to build it, then they'll probably go and, well, I would hope they could go and they could open a new issue saying, like, how do I build this thing? and then I could go and add some more documentation that would say, like, oh, you need to go and do this and this and this, and then you'll have, well, yeah, then it'll work, and then we can close that issue. And so this has got then a list of issues for the things that I'm playing around with, and there are, you know, almost as many closes as there are open, which is nice to show that I'm actually doing things. Actually, yeah, let's just jump back to the code for a second. So there's a bunch of different things. There's index.markdown is the main kind of web page. Let me see if we can see that. And yeah, this, you can kind of see that this this looks quite similar to all the stuff in the sidebar here, and it's got some slightly weird kind of things that don't look quite right, and this is basically like, these are sort of little code instructions, and it loops round a data set to basically put like this area.name is the way it kind of works out how to put, like, this is the area name, city centre or Egbert or Anfield or Bootle. So this all gets built up programmatically when the code gets run through Jekyll. And actually, if we look at it this isn't great because this is GitHub trying to make it look nice because it knows that it's Markdown, but it doesn't know anything about all of these, like, you know, curly brace percent things. So if I go and find, hopefully this text is going to be easy enough to read. It's a bit bigger than it normally is. So this is looking at stuff on my, this is the same, this is my local copy of it on my computer, and so I've got index.markdown, and I can open that, and you can see that actually it's not really Markdown, it's mostly HTML. But you can do HTML in Markdown, so that's not too much of a problem. And then, yeah, when we get down here, this is makes it a bit more sort of, well, maybe is a bit easier to read, because you then got this bit where it says for area in site.data.areas, so that's going to loop through, and like that's going to loop. Where's the end of that for? The end of that for is going to be down here, probably, yeah, which is down there. So that's like, that's a loop that runs through. So basically it will generate one of these, the TR is a table row, so it will generate a table row for each area in the data set, and then for each one it goes in, and TD is a table cell. I don't know why it's a D rather than a C. Oh, is it table data, I think, rather than table header, or always something like that. It's too long since I read the HTML spec. But this is generating the little toggle things and putting the, like, the area.name bit gets replaced with area.name, yeah, with the name of the area, and then there are some other things like, actually mostly it is just area.name, isn't it? But I've got area.name -walk so that I can reference the walking checkbox, and area name.bicycle to reference the bicycle or the cycling isochrone checkbox, and then this onChange stuff calls this JavaScript function called update isochrone visibility that goes through and works out which checkboxes are ticked and not, and draws the right isochrones on the map so that you can toggle things on and off and things like that. And so all of that data.area stuff actually is all coming from let's see, underscore data areas.json. Open it. You can see that basically, yes, it's got a whole load of stuff that I was playing around with. So let me just move that out of the way. So this was me the other day. I played around with things. I was just curious as to where you could get to within 15 minutes of 10-minute walk from any of the bike hire locations there are in Liverpool. and obviously I had a way to generate isochrones, so I just quickly went and hacked the site to build me a local version rather than to the live 15-minute city still did the proper thing, but I have a local version that instead of showing me all the 32 or however many it is now isochrone areas, it would do all of the city bike hire locations and then draw a 10-minute isochrone around each of those bike hire stations, so you could see. Actually, let me go and show you what I'm talking about, because I tweeted a link to a picture of it. Or actually, thinking about it, what I could do, CD sandbox, not GitHub, 15-minute city, and then to build, actually, let me just go and see where that is, because I think that's probably not quite as visible as it should be. So let me just go and find that and drag this and make it even smaller. Right, so now you should be able to see the whole of that terminal window on the stream. So yeah, the way that this is the, as I say, this is the source code. There's a whole bunch of different files and things to build stuff, and a couple of, I think if I do git status will show me how things have changed from the version that's in GitHub, so that I can work out. I mean, it's a bit more complicated than that, but for yeah, simplicity, it's showing me what's different. So you can see there's a few files here, bike locations, bike stations, isochrone does of all the JQ outdated that aren't in the source control system at all. There are things that I've been kind of playing around with as a sort of like whilst I've been developing stuff, but don't need to be kind of stored properly. They're more sort of experimental. Then you can see that I've changed a few different pages to do different things. And we can go and have a look at them in a moment. But this is the source code for the website, and the way that you build all this stuff, if I remember rightly. So this is all. So you need there's a program called Bundler, which is a Ruby thing that keeps track of what versions of all of the different Ruby gems, which are kind of little libraries of code that do additional things. So Jekyll is a gem, and I don't know what other things that I'm gonna. Can't think of anything off the top of my head now. That's another gem, but anyway, the whole bunch of Ruby libraries, and Bundler will help you keep track of the ones for a particular project. You end up with a gem file and gemfile.log that Bundler uses to list. Actually, if I look at what's in gemfile, we'll see that there's the Jekyll gem. It needs to be version 4.1 or thereabouts. We're not actually using a load of these ones. There's a Jekyll feed plugin. Can't remember what that does. Maybe that generates other feeds, so that does some time zone stuff if we're running on Windows. So yeah, there's not very much in the Jekyll. There aren't very many gems that are being used by this particular website. And so bundle exec will let me run a command, but within the kind of environment with all these gems. Anyway, so if I do the Jekyll build will build the website, which basically takes a whole load of stuff and it builds it into _site. So this is like the output of all of this source code, and this is the website that gets kind of shown. So this is it going off and building things, and at the moment it's going through lots of areas, but actually the areas are all bike stations. And when it's done that, I'm actually going to run it again probably. So that's that's kind of built all the source code, so all the code, all the HTML and CSS and JavaScript and images and what have you, for the website, and then I would copy it over to the live production site to get it up and running on 15minutecity.mcqn.com. There is an open issue for doing all of that automatically and in a better way, so that it would get kind of built properly from source, from a kind of clean source, rather than being copied from my computer, which is very janky and like unprofessional, I suppose. But like, yeah, this is an experimental kind of exploring stuff, and yeah, as I say, there's an open issue for doing it properly at some point, where I'll get GitHub Action to go and build it and deploy it. But for now, just just building some stuff here and then copying it to the live site kind of works. But you can also do Jekyll serve, which again will go off and do the building. But then this time, when it gets to the end of doing the building, what it will do, instead of just going, yeah, it's fine, there's a load of files now in _site, it will then spin up a little tiny web server that runs on my computer. So it's not available, you can't connect to it from the outside world, or not easily. There'll be ways of doing it, but anyway, yeah, like basically you can't. But other people who are on my Wi-Fi in my flat would be able to connect to it. Actually, could they? Can't remember whether it opens it up for that or not. Anyway, none of this matters, because all this is for is so that, yeah, as you can see here, but at least I've filled the time until it's finished building it, that now there's this server address of 127.0.0.1.4000, and if I go there, then this looks very similar to the 15 Minute City website, apart from the complete lack of map tiles for some reason. Why are there no map tiles? That's rather annoying. Yeah, very strange. There are no map tiles. Oh, there we go. I'm super zoomed out. Maybe, or I was by the time I'd done things. Let me. Yeah, I think maybe it's just that. Yeah, it is. I think it's possibly just that my computer is super slow, because I'm into like I'm streaming my webcam up to Big Blue Box, and I'm also streaming to YouTube. So, but yeah, there's a lot more isochrones being shown now, and let me just go and double check what the difference is. If I look at the so the nice thing about using Git for all your source code and stuff is that when you've changed things from the last version that you committed, you can see what you've changed. So I can see, like, I know that I've done some stuff just to kind of quickly hack together this other view, and part of the reason that I could do that and not worry about it too much is because I know that Git will let me see what's changed and get rid of all those changes, so that I don't need to worry about it, and so I can see what the difference is for the plugins generate ice. So one, it gives me a list of which files have changed out of all of the files that it knows about. So these 3 files are different from the version that's checked in, and then I can go and look at the diff for that particular one, and so we can see that what I've done is added a new URL for each of the transport ones, and the cutoff seconds is 600 rather than 900. So these are now 10-minute isochrones, not 15-minute isochrones. So yeah, it's probably not useful to look at. Well, actually, I suppose it does. Yeah. So this shows you, the green ones show you how far or where people can be in a. Let me just drag this up a bit so it's a bit more the right bit is visible. So yeah, the green stuff is where people with reduced mobility are within a 10-minute walk of one of the bike hire sites. But if I click on that top bit and then we wait for it to go, there we go. That's cleared out the reduced mobility ones just to make it a bit simpler to see what's going on. And I guess, well, people in wheelchairs will find it difficult, mostly, I would imagine, to use one of the hire bikes because they're not really set up for people with reduced, well, yeah, with who use wheelchairs. Nice if we did have something that did. That would be cool. But yeah, these are all the bike hire locations, and as you can see, I mean, kind of understandably, the city centre is pretty pretty well covered with bike hire stops. So you're probably within 10 minutes walk of quite a few bike hire places in the city, in and around the city centre. But then, like, super interestingly, it's the south of the city that's covered after that. Excuse me. Rather than like further north. I mean, like, yeah, because there was Norris Green and Bootle and stuff, so further north still. So yeah, it's kind of super interesting exactly who gets to have a bike hire system and who doesn't in the city, or like, I don't know, I'm not sure exactly why that is. Apart from the fact that the south of the city is the more kind of affluent and kind of middle class part of the city than compared to the bits of the north and further east. But anyway, yes. So that's so that was me messing around to build that. So let me go, and then I don't need those changes to that one, so I can do a git checkout minus of plugins generate isochrones, and that will undo the changes, and you'll see over here it's automatically, like, Jekyll's worked out that one of the files has changed, which is quite nice for doing the while you're doing development of stuff, because it will, you make a change to some code and save it, and then it goes, that file on disk has changed, I need to rebuild the website so that we can see what the latest changes look like. And so it's going off and rebuilding stuff. And what other files were different? I don't know what changes in index.markdown. That was the Robin Lovelace stuff where I missed off the fact that he is Dr. Robin Lovelace. So let me just commit that and add, because I do want that change, I want to keep that change. So I can do a commit, which is going to put it into the latest version of source, the one that's tracked under source control, and make that the kind of official latest version. And I want to comment on this. There isn't an issue it's reporting to, it's related to, so I'll just do add correct. What's the term? What's the name? Like, prefix isn't quite the right word, but it will do for this commit for Dr. Robin Lovelace. So now if we do a git log, we can see that there is that commit that I've just done. So this is a list of all of the things that I've done, that I can just make notes as I go as to what stuff's what stuff's happened and what's gone on, so I can see, and then I could go back to previous versions if I wanted to, so I can kind of wind back and go backwards and forwards in time, I suppose, effectively during the development. Right, what else is done? Git status. Right, so this this file has changed a lot, the under data areas. It helps if I remember to put the word diff in, and you'll see that basically, like, all the stuff that was in there has gone, and there's loads of new things because I got rid of all the old neighbourhoods and replaced them with all the bike stations. Now I don't want this for the proper data, like for the proper website, so I need to kind of revert this, but rather than, or just before I revert it, because I might want to do stuff with the bike locations. Yeah, there is a bike locations.json there which might have some of this info, but actually I'm just gonna copy and make a copy of this before I undo those changes. City bike stations. And I don't know if you got to hear that I'm the only person in this conference, which I don't know if that means that somebody else was in the conference and I didn't notice. Oh, Ross is in the conference, trying to be in the conference. I think it looks like Ross might be trying to be in the conference. Anyway, let's go back and see what happens when he probably just needs to get through the audio check and things. So anyway, this is it Jason? Scroll. That's off. It's not in the scroll window. Right. Let me go see. Data. Oh yeah, areas.json to city bike stations.json. So that's rebuilding a whole load of stuff. Let me just see if this. That's not John. That's not Ross trying to get in. And so I've made a copy of those, so if I ever need the city bike stations in the future, I've got them lying around. I don't think I'm going to check that in just yet, because I don't know what I'm going to do. Yeah, it's not important, the rest of the site doesn't use it. It's just going to be built as a sort of set of data that we could access in some of the templates that we use when we're building the website. But the other thing that I can do is I can revert the data areas.json, and if I do a git status now, then, and you can see the files over here, there's a load it's skipping because it doesn't know where they are, and the file hasn't changed. And if I go and reload the local website version, you see that the list of isochrones is very different. And we're back to the proper kind of live version of the website, and it's got rid of all of my changes. So as I was saying, I suppose I'm going to have a quick look at the data areas.json, and so you see this is JSON is the JavaScript object notation, if I remember rightly, but it's a format for storing data and things. And basically this is just a list of, like, each line is one area on the map, and we have, like, each one has a few different things. So there's a name field, which is city centre, like the bit that will show up over here as the area name, and then there's a latitude and longitude, which gives you the coordinates of the center point of a particular neighborhood on the city. So you can go and find, and basically there's a bunch of them, like this one, broad green, where its lat and long is 0, which is just off the west coast of Africa, if I remember rightly. So if you ever see anything that's kind of dumped you there, then that's probably just that the developers got some zeros in their code, which are then being turned into, like, points where it thinks that something is happening when it's not really. Because, like in this case, I have special code, as you can see, where it says skipping null island, because it knows that all of the things that I'm looking for, there's no way that the latitude or longitude is going to be 0, because Liverpool is nowhere near the equator or the Greenwich Meridian. I suppose it's reasonably close to the Greenwich Meridian, but luckily it's far enough away that I don't have to worry about that. and I can just go, oh look, it's zeros. So I suppose if somebody wanted to make one for London, then you'd probably have to you might need to change that code and make sure that it skips when both of the things are 0. I can't remember what the code does now. But anyway, that skips over generating the isochrones, but otherwise we'll go and generate isochrones for each of the things in here. So if we want to if we want to add a new area to the map, because we're going, say we're going a bit further out, then we can just create a new line in it and somewhere else, and then we can go and put the latitude and longitude in, and then it will generate and there'll be a somewhere else on the map when it gets regenerated, but we do not want to do that at the moment, so let's drop back out of that. So yeah, we didn't get Ross in the end. It looks like we almost got Ross, but then we didn't. Oh right, so apparently we've lost. So I've been chatting away all this time whilst my live stream's been messed up. The joys of doing this for the first time. I wonder if that does it. If that hotkey is a global hotkey then, because I can do that. Yeah. So I bet that's when I was in here and I did Control A. Is that taking me back? Yes. Okay. Interesting. Right. let's go back to the desktop and let's go to the selfie one, because you don't need to see me poking around in. So yeah, Ross, you're in the chat, but you're not in the big blue button. You were in the big blue button for a bit, weren't you? But you didn't. Yeah, you didn't join. You didn't seem to join properly. You seemed to be momentarily in the big blue button, or you were listed at some point, but you didn't appear on the video call. Anyway, let me just go and change these keyboard shortcuts, which is good that I don't have to flip to OBS Studio to change scene, but I don't want it to do that just like magically when I'm not realizing it. Can I change the settings whilst I'm streaming? Hotkeys, let's see. So yeah, that one's probably okay. So what am I going to do? Yeah, let's change these to be Control Shift and the thing that I thought, and then we'll probably find there's some different magic key press that I'm. Yeah, let's. Okay. Right. Hopefully now I won't accidentally switch switch scene in OBS Studio when without I suppose I won't accidentally do that. Won't do that when I'm not meaning to. So let's see if this works. It does. Okay, I'm gonna have to work out some better. Ooh, that's very much not what I wanted to be showing. How's that doing stuff? Okay. Right. Well, I seem to be doing all sorts of great things with let me flip back to that whilst I actually no, I can't. Okay, let me go let me go and try and work out this screen. Yeah, that's why this should be just screen capture. Why is that not just capturing the screen? Why is that capturing the chat? Oh, is it? The chat is full size. The screen is hidden behind it. There we go. Okay. So that's a bit better, and then let's not stretch it so much. Okay, right. Who knows what I'm yeah, who knows what I'm doing? Not me, as is very apparent. Okay, right, let's hopefully not switch to a different screen, different scene in OBS. And what else do I want to do? Yeah, so we're only like an hour and a half, like halfway through, and I'm finally at a point when if I can find my right window, then I might actually do some coding rather than just rambling about stuff. So let's go back here and go and look at what issues there are. I'm not going to worry about the security vulnerability just this second. I could go in and fix that, but actually that's, as we've seen, it's so does this mean that Ross is okay, you only get so Ross kind of comes in and then disappears. I don't know why he can't get into the live stream. Yeah, like you should be. Then if you want to try it again, Ross, and I'll see if I can see if there's something where I get to see, like maybe I have to let you in or something. What settings are there for this? I don't really care about those things. Audio alerts for user join, that would be a useful one to have, wouldn't it? Don't really want pop-up alerts for that. But maybe I'll get to see, or I'll get to hear when somebody tries to join the big blue button room, which would be good. And that was presumably the noise for me joining. Like Ross seems to be in the, yeah, it's weird, Ross, you seem to be in the chat, and I don't know why. Like when I used this yesterday, and that sounds like some audio from somebody. You, hello, hello. You might need to. Well, it depends if you want to, but you might need to share your video if you want to appear on screen. And actually, let me switch scene, which also is, yeah, I'm totally going to have to get some better what you call them, shortcuts, because whatever shortcuts I decide to use, I seem to have managed to override with some other shortcuts. So yeah, if you work out to do the video stuff, Ross, then we'll get to see you, or part of you by the looks of it. Or maybe we won't get to, like, are you on? Yeah, I think you're. Ah, you're just obscured by a chat box.
That's how I like it.
Yeah, I think if you move to your right very slightly on your webcam, you'll appear. But I mean, you are just about. There you go.
Which one? This one?
Yeah. You're now on the stream. Let me see if there's a way of. Can I move you around? No, I can't. I need to do a bit more getting my. Actually, what I could do is in OBS Studio. Can I? That's just going to squash us instead, though, isn't it? Which is probably not good.
I was just going to say.
Yeah.
I kept leaving the big blue button because there wasn't anything for me to do there. It's just got kind of meeting loading screen.
Right, interesting. So how did you get in the end then?
No, I got it. I'm in.
Oh, okay.
There's nothing to do, so I just go back. I can't see your screen in big blue button.
Oh, I see. Good point. But if you're watching the live stream, then okay, right.
If I do YouTube at the same time, I'm sort of distracted by your face being out of sync.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting. Yeah, okay, that's a good, yeah, good point. I suppose. Well, hopefully now I'll get notifications when somebody joins, because part of the problem is that I've got the um, big blue buttons just in a window in the background, and OBS
Right.
Studio is capturing that and streaming it out. Um, but but I don't get to see it, and so I didn't get any, like, because there was no audible. I only got a notification when you left, because it would go like, "You're the only person in the room," and I'm like, "Oh, well, there was somebody else in the room a moment ago, and I didn't see them." Uh,
It's just me. It's not like a crowd of people queuing to join.
ah, um, but it's, yeah, it's kind of, so at least worked out how to turn that audio notification on. So hopefully, I'll notice if anybody else joins the system. And I guess like I'm, as you've as you've seen, this is all just very experimental and off the cuff. Um,
Yeah, no, it's really good. Can you tell who's watching on YouTube?
so if I was running, I don't know if I can tell who's watching. I suppose no, I can't is the simple answer at the moment. I can see the chat window,
Yeah.
because the chat window is actually, OBS Studio is capturing the chat window to put it onto the stream, because that's all stuff that let me go back here, find a web browser, and pull up my pinboard bookmarks. Because basically I read this awesome Suze Hinton. She's a live coder who does kind of some JavaScript Arduino-y stuff,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
and she wrote a really good Medium post about how she's got everything set up. So I've been like, I haven't got everything set up as well as she has, but the reason that I've got a thing set up in any kind of um, a way that's not terrible, is because I read her Medium post, which, yeah, this is all just, I suppose, streaming twice, like, is just
Yeah.
slowing my computer down quite a bit. But she's written this, yeah, awesome guide that talks about what kit she's got, but then also how she's got different scenes set up, and things like that. And so I've been just copying a lot of her ideas, to get stuff set up so that, like, that coming soon screen is my standby one, with just, like, I grabbed a couple of images that I had knocking around, and I'm like, oh look, you can do an image slideshow in OBS Studio really easily, so I'll do that, and then I can just drop some photos in, or whatever, some images into a folder, and then because she's got some text that scrolls, so that if you're watching the live stream, you can work out that the live stream hasn't frozen, because stuff changes. Because obviously, if it's just a single image, then you're not going to tell. Like, it could be like, yeah, your stream's frozen, and you only realise that like half an hour into, and you'd miss like a load of me rambling about God knows what. Um, but then she has some like little widgets and stuff. She's done it like slightly differently to how I've done it, but she has got like her screen, and then she's got an area where it has the live chat, and an area where it has just the webcam stuff. So I've been kind of copying that mostly. I
I mean,
pulled,
it's working okay.
yeah, but and there are still some rough edges, because like I can see the live coding chat, but at the moment, like, so that was, I went and found something on YouTube that said like, oh, you can just do embed a chat thing, and I'm like, great, that's perfect, that'll let me just embed the chat so it can be on the side, and I can see it, and I don't have to have the, like, YouTube studio stuff. Oh, actually, I've just realised, I'm totally on the wrong scene for this, aren't I? Not that you, I suppose you can't see my screen anyway, can you, Ross? Um, but don't feel bad, because nobody on the live stream has been able to see my screen either. um,
Well,
because I didn't switch scene in OBS Studio, and I'm on the selfie scene, which is basically you and I and the chat box. Um, so so I've been pointing at bits on a web page that nobody apart from me has been able to see. But yeah, basically she's got stuff set up similarly, and you can tell. I suppose one of the things that would be useful to know is to know how many people are watching the live stream. I think that would be useful to know. I mean, maybe it wouldn't, because it would also be a bit distracting. Because, like, at the moment, I've just, rambled on. I haven't actually read all of your chat stuff because it would get in the way of because I was just in full flow. And I'm like, well, if I read that, then I'm gonna have to stop, and then I'm gonna so I'm still working those sorts of things out. And also, so I think in some ways it would be good to know if there were people watching, but I think it would also interrupt what I'm talking about, because it would be like, oh, hello, oh, you've gone, oh, right, well, so there'd just be a load of me basically live narrating my viewer levels, or just stay at zero all the time, and that wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, I guess we just there's nobody commenting, so just assume there's no one there. They don't say anything.
Yeah. Basically.
It's obviously we don't do live streaming very
Yeah.
because I guess like loads of people, when you watch streamers and the chat's so dense that you cannot look at all of it. You just fleetingly just
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing that Sue's talked about. Like she has some moderators on her chat and stuff, so she's got some friends or people to help out with moderating things, which is I suppose it's annoying that she needs moderators, that people might come in and start trolling or what have you, but also means that you've got somebody else kind of behind the scenes watching things, and who would maybe she's got an extra kind of back channel so that they could alert her to say actually there's a chat comment that's super interesting, you should go and check it out, and things like that. Yeah, and I've been wondering longer term, he says getting far too far ahead of himself, having done one live stream, not particularly well, and still not. I don't know what you mean. I've reverted a couple of changes and get. I've opened Vim a couple of times. But yeah, I haven't moved the project forwards at all, really. But well, that's mostly what I'm trying to do when I start doing some coding. But yeah, I think you'd maybe have somebody. I guess I suppose I don't know. I quite like this idea of sort of maybe we need the right term for it, but the kind of more collaborative live coding sort of session, or just getting to a point where there's a team of people working on some stuff, and I guess at that point, yeah, I don't know how well it would work, I suppose, because I get really distracted when I'm if I'm in the office and somebody else is kind of narrating their work, because I keep thinking that they're talking to me, and sort of kind of getting distracted, and I can't focus on whatever I'm trying to do. And obviously with live coding, you kind of have to narrate, or somebody has to be narrating the work, unless it's going to be really boring. Maybe it's some new super slow TV sort of thing where you dial into a stream and mostly it's just silence, and there's just faint tapping of a keyboard, and every now and then there's some conversation, because it's just this is basically just a live feed of an office.
I just didn't notice that the screen had gone off because I was I've just downloaded the repo. It's
Mhm. Well, that's good that you were kind of having to poke around with some stuff. Yeah.
I'd sort of zone out what you were saying, and
Mhm.
go, I wonder if I could just put my map about something else in this while you're talking.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. I mean, and that's, I suppose, yeah, more the sorts of thing I think that I'd want to do within the within like these sorts of I guess like in the kind of the way that I'd envisage it maybe working, and all of this is up for grabs and for exploration and stuff, isn't it? But it would be that like you'd be like we'd start off, and I mean if I do more live goal, maybe when I do more, because I'm probably going to try another. Like I'll definitely try a couple more sessions of it, if nothing else. Um, like the at the start there won't be an hour of me explaining what the project is. It felt like I kind of needed to do that just as a sort of first off. Not that that's really going to help, because nobody who's going to tune in the future is going to have watched the previous live stream to me. But I guess at least now it's there, I can go, oh, if you want to get all the background, go and watch the first stream, which is terrible, but it's me rambling for an hour about what this is. And so the idea would be a bit more like it was just a group of whoever's going to work on it getting together and going, okay, what are you going to work on? What am I going to work on? Like, and maybe there are things that people can work on together, or maybe it's like somebody else would say like, oh, I'm going to go look at issue blah, and so there'd be a collaborative thing, which maybe I guess would be in the kind of view with that we've got at the moment with all of the people as a video participation, but maybe I'd share my screen on Big Blue Button so that you could see it, and then it would be like, okay, here's the issue list. What do you want to go and work on? What should I mean, maybe we could try that now. Like, this is going to work really weirdly. Let me see if I can. Oh, yeah, you're not a presenter. So I can share mine, I think. Can you see my screen now? Yeah, I could make you a presenter, which would let you share your screen, I think. Why is that not work? Oh, there we go. Yeah, so but my computer's running really slow, so I started to share my screen and then thought it hadn't worked and then stopped sharing my screen. Why have I got so many screens that don't have names? What's that one? Is that the screen? Yeah, this could be the bit where it all falls over in a heap. I don't think it's your camera that's causing the problem. Let me see. So, which screen do I want to share? Why have I not got a? Let me just. Sod it. Let me just share the entire screen. It's going to be easier. Entire screen. Is that working?
Yeah, so I can just see the
Online meeting cooperative. Yeah, that's a slide deck, which I suppose I can probably change that slide deck, or we should change that slide deck to something more interesting and more useful. Yeah, that's because at the moment I've still got a window up that says like, do you want to allow to just share your entire screen? And I thought I'd clicked allow quite a few times, and I've just done it again, and now maybe there we go. We got some nice. You can see how fast my computer is as to how slowly it did that that kind of amazing picture-in-picture kind of dropping down sort of a thing. So let me do that. I feel like I'm on kind of top of the pops in the late 70s at the moment. So yeah, I think what how I'd imagine maybe doing it is that we'd start off and we'd kind of go, okay, what like here are the issues. which issue are we going to work on in today's session? Um, and then I guess, well, and then I suppose it's working out whether there are things to do collaboratively or things to do like individually and then check back in. And I suppose, yeah, like it's, and maybe it wouldn't always be, yeah, it wouldn't just be about the 15-minute city thing. It could just be like basically a Code for Liverpool like hack day. Yeah. And so it could be that like you'd be like, oh, I'm going to go and look at this other issue that is about something a bit different or something, and then I'd pick one of these issues to go and kind of mess around with and work on and talk about what I was doing. But at certain points, like, I mean, I guess you'd be free to tune in or out of what I was up to, and then like interject, or every now and then we could do oh, I wonder what Ross is up to, like, and jump over and allow you to present things and get you to share your screen and say like, oh, I've been doing this and like this is where I want to. And so it's a bit, I suppose, like you were, or like we were saying yesterday when we were chatting about it, it's like a telethon. It's like, let's check in with South Liverpool and we'll go to Ross and see how things are going down there. But maybe there'd be, I suppose, well, maybe at some point we'd have somebody else doing some of the kind of driving OBS and managing the stream and things behind the scenes, rather than me doing it badly live. Or maybe I'll just build a whole load of little kind of Arduino-y gadgets or something, or get a better setup. Yeah, there's definitely a whole bunch of things we could do. Presumably there'd be some way of finding out how many people are watching it live that doesn't involve, because I think basically there's like a studio thing in YouTube, which is where you kind of go live and stuff like that and manage it, and you would, I suppose, do the streaming from if you weren't using something like OBS Studio, but you don't get as much flexibility over like placing different things on the screen in different places and then being able to flip with different scenes to go to standby and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that was like, this is going to be another browser window that's probably going to be trying to show me some live video. Like, so having that running as well just felt like it was asking too much of my laptop. I guess. So that's why I haven't been running that, but that does give you like how many viewers there are and things like that, and some stats and what have you. So I'll go and have a look at that afterwards. I mean, the thing that I was going to look at today when I was thinking about it, he says, because now I'm 2 hours in, like I should work out what I'm going to do for the last hour. So this issue, adding a tile set for land use, is basically like, if we look at the actual map, like the kind of general map tiles, so not the isochrones, like all the background stuff, and all the roads and things like that. This is using the OpenStreetMap tile set at the moment. So that's one of the nice things about OpenStreetMap, is because it's just an open data set. You can show the data in whatever way makes sense to you. So like the default, like Google Maps and things like that, they always end up being a kind of car centric view of the world, where they're kind of going like, well, when you're looking at the whole country, obviously like you want the motorways to be obvious because they're how you're going to get around the whole country, and then the A roads and things like that. And when you're cycling, motorways aren't very useful because you can't cycle down them, so you're never going to use them for getting about. and even some of the major A roads like aren't going to be great to cycle on. So what you can do with, like, you don't get that kind of option with Google Maps, I don't think, of being able to look at it differently. You always get the car centric view, whereas OpenStreetMap will let you do other views. So the default OpenStreetMap tile set, is a kind of more standard sort of a map. But then there's a different one which uses the same data and just decides to show it differently. So it, like, the motorways are still visible if I scroll out a bit. So yeah, you can still see the M57, or you will do eventually when all of the. I mean, you can see this top bit of it there, but it's not quite as obvious that it's there. I mean, you can see it. It does exist, but it's not super in your face of like, oh yeah, this is a route that you might want to go down on your bike, because you can't go down on your bike, and instead you get things like this route here, which looks like it goes down the motorway, but doesn't actually go down the motorway. There's a bridleway that runs alongside the motorway, which actually I cycled down about this time last week. I was probably there, as it happens, and so this is part of the national cycle network. So all of the red lines and then the 862, that's the national cycle network numbers, and this is the Trans-Pennine Trail running down the loop line, which is like an old railway line, which is Route 62 on the national cycle network. And so like, you can't drive down there, that's a old railway. You can't get a train down there either, there aren't any railway tracks, but you can walk down it, you can cycle down it, you could ride down it on a horse, and so that's much more visible, because that's a good cycle route to go down. And so, like, the Google Maps is never going to show the loop line as prominently as the Open Cycle Map does. And then all these blue lines are the kind of Liverpool council's cycle paths and cycle networks. So a lot of these are on the road, and they're just designated as a cycle path as well as a road, but at least you can kind of go, okay, there's, like this route here, like that's, I remember cycling that, you get all the way from Walton down to Old Swan, kind of around here. Oh yeah, this is Old Swan, yeah. Like, and this is all kind of residential roads basically, so that's quite a nice cycle route if you're, well, I mean, even as an experienced cyclist, because like, it's nice not having to worry about the cars. This one on the outside, it's not quite as nice as I cycled this one quite a lot, and it's a bit more kind of the more major roads, I suppose, basically, whereas these are more kind of residential roads that you can cycle down as well, and so you end up with the traffic. There's less traffic, and the traffic that's on them is going more slowly. Like this one's a bit more major cycle route wise, but yeah, you can see, so the cycle routes are more obvious. And so what I'd like to do with the 15-minute city stuff is, because it's not just about like, oh, let's do more cycling, it's about thinking about your area differently, and if you're wanting your everyday needs within your, so like if you're in West Derby, for example, and you want to know, actually let me see if I find the zoom into that a little bit, although it's then going to take forever to re-render things at the moment, isn't it? Like, is that actually recognised that I've clicked on that? Yeah, this may be the biggest problem. Like, Adrian needs a better computer to do. There we go, zoomed in lots. So you've got within the, like, so the West Derby, the centre of the village, as it's known by the locals, despite just being a district of Liverpool, but it's got quite a villagey feel when you get through that bit of town. St Mary's Church is in the centre here, and this is Croxteth Park. So you could be looking at it and kind of going, okay, well, this is the 15-minute isochrone for around there, and like I know that most of this is kind of residential sort of stuff. Obviously, you've got some nice green space because you've got Crockford Park there. There's a pub on the corner here, another pub over here, and there are basically some shops along. This is effectively the kind of high street of West Derby, and I suppose up Mill Lane. So you can kind of go, okay, there's some retail kind of around this bit in the centre. There's Holly Lodge School kind of up at the edge of it. So that's where, well, I mean, it's only where the girls can go to school, but it's there's a school, and it's thinking about some of the other stuff. Because you sort of go, okay, well, there's sort of there's somewhere I can go buy some groceries. There's somewhere I could live. There's somewhere I could go for a bit of exercise or to just get back to a bit of nature or something, some greenery. There's some level of amenities, like there's a church there of some description. There's St Mary's Church isn't showing up, which is in the centre there. There's a school. I can't remember if West Derby's got a library or not, and if it has, where it is. But you could be thinking about those sorts of different sorts of things. There's not a lot in the way of office space, or that I can think of around West Derby. There's a tyre place out on Almonds Green, which I suppose is out this way somewhere, I think. And so you then kind of go, okay, well, where would I work that's within the 15 minutes? And you'd maybe want to see whether there was some sort of office space, or there was some industrial, are there any factories or warehouses or like car mechanics places or those kind of things, because you're trying to think about what are the needs of the different sorts of people who would be living in any particular 15-minute isochrone. And so in order to try and get that sort of as something that you can kind of look at, because I mean I know West Derby not super well, but like I suppose well enough to do the describing that I've been doing just now. But this map isn't showing any of the shops, and like it's not clear that all of these I mean, you can kind of make a guess that these sorts of roads look like they're probably residential roads, but that's not necessarily the case. So what I think it would be nice would be to do a different set of map tiles that, instead of as this one does, it focuses on stuff that's kind of good for cyclists. Maybe we could do a tile set that was good for 15-minute cities. And to my mind, that's one that kind of just shows in different colours, like I mean, it wouldn't necessarily have to show you that there's woodland versus just kind of open grassed areas, which the park bit does here, but maybe it would just show that all as kind of green, because it's just like there is some green space here, and then it would show like the school might be, I don't know what colour you'd have for schools, but maybe that's purple or something, I don't know. And then the shops would be orange, and the houses would be kind of brick coloured or something. But pick a load of different colours and then just get the different areas draw. Because I suppose at the moment this residential, it probably is residential in the way that it's, or at least built up in the way that it's kind of grey. Because I imagine that if we get out into some other parts of the city that aren't kind of built up areas, then I suppose they're either going to show up as mostly green, or maybe it'd be brown because it's going to be fields or something. I don't know. That's something we can go and find. I suppose actually if we scroll across we get to see this sort of pinky sort of colour, which is the industrial estate. So there's some of this sort of colouring happening already, where the areas that, like, that's Knowsley Industrial Estate, and then Kirby Industrial Estate the other side, and then you're out into the fields as you get further out and beyond the city. Um, but there's no like obvious difference between. I suppose the shops don't show up as kind of obvious. An office, I don't know what office space would show up as, whether that's just going to be built up rather than industrial. But yeah, I don't know if you presumably you get the kind of idea of the sort of thing I'm talking about. Ross, if you're still there.
Yeah, I am here. Sorry.
No, that's all right. So excellent. Well, if you're working out how to build it yourself, can you make notes as you go?
Yeah,
In
you just have to make sure you've got bundle installed.
right, okay, but then yeah, do you need to do like bundle install and then bundle? Like I guess yeah,
Definitely need to like bundle exactly before you start. So I'll write it down.
yeah. That's what I'm just thinking. Like if you've gone through the steps of working out how to run it. Like you'll have at least tripped over some of the things, and there may be other things that other people would be. But you could you could add a section to the readme.md that is like install or installation instructions basically, and even if it's just on a level of install bundler or install Ruby, install bundler, or maybe it's just install bundler, I don't know, and then run. I think you just do bundle install and then bundle exec Jekyll serve or something like that. Um, so so that would then let you because then you're just going to make you're going to move things forwards even if I haven't.
Okay, how do you want me to do it in the readme? I was going to make an issue.
Well, I think the readme is where it would go. I mean, yeah, like you could create an issue that says like add some instructions on how to develop with it or whatever, and then the installation instructions should live in the README, and then when you committed those changes to the README, you could close the issue. But like it's a bit arguable as to whether that's make work or not. As to you're mostly going to create an issue that goes go and do a thing, and then you'll immediately be like, yeah, I've done the thing and I've closed it. So
That's what I do on GitHub all the time.
yeah, I mean, and I do that as well. Like yesterday when I created an issue on the Does Liverpool Somebody Should, that was like we should get more safety glasses, and then I'm like I've bought more safety glasses and they're here, and these are the ones I got. So the issue's already. I mean, it's like that one's not actually closed because I need to work out. We've got some kid-sized safety glasses, and I need to work out where we're going to store them so they don't get confused for adult-sized safety glasses. But yeah, like the issue's done, and it was done before I opened the issue. I'd ordered the glasses and they'd turned up because I was buying some for myself and just added some extras in. But it means that there's a list in the GitHub issues of where I got them from, because that isn't obvious from anywhere else. Whereas, this is going to show up in the Git log. There'll be like the Dr. Robin Lovelace stuff that I added earlier. I wasn't, there isn't an issue about that. There's no point opening an issue about that. It's just a minor little tweak. That's really obvious when you're looking in the Git history as to what's happened. So yeah, it's up to you whether you create an issue or not. But I think the instructions should be in the readme.md.
If I've run out of time and have to go and make a sandwich,
Mm-hmm.
I'll set it to finish the readme.
That's fine. Sudo make me a sandwich to jump into XKCD jokes. So the stuff I'm looking at the moment with this website is basically how do we build our own tile set that makes it more obvious the different types of land use that are around, so you can see what's in the different bits of the 15-minute city, 15-minute isochron. So to start that, there's a slightly different tile set called CycloSM, which is another cycling focused OpenStreetMap tile set, and that one is also open source, whereas I don't think the Open Cycle Network set is open source. It's one of I can't remember his name now, Gravity Storm I think is his username on things, but yeah, the guy who did the Open Cycle map, I don't think he's released that as open source, or it wasn't obvious when I went looking for it, and I found CycloSM instead. And mostly I'm going to hack around with it and make it different so it doesn't massively matter. And so last time I was playing with this, which actually let me yeah, I'm showing my screen, aren't I? So so you can all see what's going on. I had a sudden fear that I was in the wrong scene in OBS and that I'd be doing my usual talking lots about a website that nobody can see. So yeah, issue 13, adding a tile set for land use, is 13 days ago when I was last messing around with this stuff. I started installing this, so I found CycloSM, and they've got all the source code for how they build their tile sets, and so I followed their install. And so mostly what I do when I'm working on these things, especially the more complex stuff where I don't really know what I'm doing, I'll make comments as I go of what I got up to. So hopefully, if anybody else wanted to spin up a version of the 15-minute city website for their own like their own area, or what have you, you could go and poke around in the closed issues and see some of the steps for like getting OpenTripPlanner up and running and things like that. I was making notes as I went, which I guess is a bit different from me having just told you, Ross, to stick everything in the README. But I think getting this code running in the README is good. I suppose the other thing you would want to do if you were doing like this, that's reliant on me having an OpenTripPlanner instance running with data for Liverpool. So if you were doing it for a different area, you'd need to get a different OpenTripPlanner instance, and that's actually documented in an issue rather than installation. Maybe it should move into the README anyway. But so I installed a whole bunch of things. Like you have to download a load of the data, the OpenStreetMap data, and stick it into a Postgres database, and then run some bits of code to generate a whole load of other things, and install a bunch of bits of software that will basically, you kind of write some Carto CSS, I think it's called, which isn't it's not CSS in the kind of HTML and CSS style, cascading style sheet sort of a thing, but I think it's inspired by the cascading style sheets sort of idea, and that's how. And then you write a load of rules for how the map should be rendered, and then you run some software on the data set that you've downloaded with the rules that you've set, and that generates a bunch of tiles. And so I've downloaded the data for I think I got a slightly bigger area when I was doing that. So I pulled down Merseyside and Cheshire and Lancashire and Greater Manchester, although I have a feeling that it ran out of memory when I was trying to run it with all of those things on the server that I'm doing it on, so I ended up just limiting the tiles. And mostly I need to kind of half read through this myself to remind myself where I got up to, which is the other reason why I write these comments, is so that when I come back to it in 2 weeks after I last touched it, I can be like, what the hell was I doing? Where did I get to? How do I go and pick this up again and carry on with it a bit further? And Right, okay, so this Cosmtic, if that's how you pronounce it, God knows how you pronounce it, which generates the files, I think. Let me see. Yeah, so that was where I got up to last time I was playing around with it. Was I had a tile server which would generate all of the map tiles for the cyclosm stuff from um, from kind of raw from the source data. So I suppose a bit like building software from source code and getting a thing rather than just downloading one that already exists. I have now done building map tiles from source from the source data, I suppose, and style sheets rather than just getting some that somebody else has built for me. Which maybe I should work out how the hell I was doing that. So let me just go and find my terminal. And if I remember rightly, I was doing all of this on the 15-minute city server rather than on my local machine. Yep, so I've got this CycloSM Carto CSS style repository. So that's got a whole load of things in it, and you can see that there's some PBF files, which is the OpenStreetMap data for, so that's the one for Greater Manchester, and that's the one for Lancashire, and the one for Merseyside is here. And at some point, like I guess, with the improved deployment system, we should also probably get the tiles to get updated every now and then, or to get for the data to get pulled down every now and then. So at the moment, this is the OpenStreetMap data from a couple of weeks ago, so it won't have the very latest changes. Like, it's probably not a big deal because I doubt the map will change that much that quickly. But if we start going and adding more stuff to the OpenStreetMap data, like if once we've got this, we're then like, oh, well, actually, it doesn't show the big factory at such and such a place, and we can go in and edit OpenStreetMap to add the big factory at such and such a place. But then we need to download the data again and regenerate the map tiles for it to show up in our map tiles. Like that happens automatically for OpenStreetMap and stuff, so you can add new features and then it shows up within like a few hours or something, or maybe even faster these days. I can't remember now. So let me stop serving the website as well, and also just get another session on the server. Oops. Typo in my stupidly weird terminal. So CycloSM, right, and so I think in this issue I made a note that yes, I can run this weird version of Cosmtic thing. So this, hopefully this file, this command, if I, let's see, have I got, project.mml was in this folder, and I've got project.mml in this folder, so it must be in here that I run it, and I do that, and it falls over in a heap. Damn. Do I need to do some kind of, there was a node, the NVM is this node manager-y thing, isn't it? So did I make a note? No, I did not make a note of. Oh, actually, yeah, there's NVM install there. Yeah, let me just have a look in the history and see what. See what I was doing last time I was in here. Okay, so the NVM help. I wonder if that. Yeah, I think basically like when I last played around with this, I had loads of problems with getting the right version of like this. This software requires a specific version of Node and Node package manager and stuff, and so I ended up with NVM, which is like a Node virtual Node environment manager or something like that. I don't know what it stands for, but it manages different versions of NVM. And so I can probably run, if this will let me see, like, I suppose what I'm hoping to do is find out which version, or whether I need to do something to get the local version. I don't use NVM very much. Display the currently activated version of Node. Okay, so let's see if I've got one of them. NVM current 8.9.1. Yeah, so I think maybe that's maybe where it's going wrong. So if I look at the history and get rid of anything that isn't NVM related, you will see that what I had been doing was probably this NVM install 6.17.1, so I think maybe if I move back to using that one, it's already installed, that's good. Now using this, so now if I do NVM current, it's 6.17.1, and so is this going to work if I run that? Yes, there we go. This looks much more promising. So I can't remember how long this takes now, but this is generating a whole load of map tiles, and it's going to run a server on the 50-minute city server, which reminds me, I think I had some I think it only does it for local hosts, so whilst that's building thing, oh, it has built stuff. So this is not going to work because it's looking on localhost, and it's not on localhost, it's on 15-minute city mcfan.com at port 6789. This is probably also not going to work. Yes, that did not work because it's the like it's not allowing just anybody to connect to it. It's expecting you to be running the web browser on the same machine that the map tiles are being generated on, and they're not. I'm generating this on a server in the cloud, and it's a DigitalOcean droplet or something, I think, if I remember rightly. And so what I can do to kind of sneakily get around this is when I'm SSHing into it, I can do some port forwarding. And what port was it? It's port 6789. And so I can get port 6789, and then on the far end, like when I'm SSH'd in, that will connect. So this is going to open port 6789 on my local machine as a kind of listening port. Ports being a place where web servers can live, and loads of other stuff as well. But for this example, it's web server. We're going to connect to it, which is the bit if you ever see a weird, like after this bit where I'm going like there's a name of the machine and then colon and then a number. This number is the port number that it's going to connect to. So you can see that the Jekyll was running at port 4000, and 127.0.0.1 is localhost, which is like the machine you're running on, wherever you happen to be, and localhost is a synonym for that. So when we were a minute ago, we were at localhost 6789. So this is trying to connect to a web server running at 6789 on my machine, and there isn't one, which is why I get unable to connect. But there is a web server running at 6789 on the server that I'm doing this development on. And so what I can do here is this is me SSHing, so I'm going to get a terminal session in the a secure shell is what SSH is on the development server, and because I can't just connect to that server at port 6789 because it doesn't let just anybody, it only lets people on the local machine do it. So I'm going to pretend that I'm on the local machine. I suppose I sort of am on the local machine, but yeah, I'm creating an SSH tunnel, this is called. So this is going to be port 6789 on my local machine. When something connects to that, it's then going to connect to the far end of this SSH connection, so the development server is going to connect to localhost 6789 on that machine instead. So I'm going to do that, which will log in. So now I'm on the development server, and if I reload this, magically, boom, there we go. We have a map tile viewer, or whatever, for want of a better term. It's still loading lots, so we can see what, yeah, there's a whole load of, you know, output happening from the from the yeah, map tile generator thing, which is, yeah, you know, complaining about some font related stuff, which I think it did last time. It isn't really a problem. And maybe eventually we'll get some tiles. And so this is going to be like, you know, 2.5 hours in, I've got back to where I was 2 weeks ago. But actually, whilst it's doing that, I'm going to make some notes here just to say that I needed to do, yeah, let's get this running again. So I'm just going to make some notes so that next time I'm doing stuff with this, there's, you know, it's easier to get back to where I was. And what did I do? CD cycle, actually, yeah. I need to CD that, and then I need to do running MVM to get the right version of MVM. So just cut and paste the folder that I was in. So I'm doing this while I'm SSH'd into the 15-minute city server. Plus I needed to create an SSH tunnel to port 6789 on localhost to be able to access the server. Right. Okay. Let me just find the command that I ran, and it was, yep, this one. So that should give me the notes that I need so that I can get the map tiles up and running again. Let me see if this has managed to find. Yep, there we go. And actually, yes, you can see we have started at 0, 0. So the center of this map is Null Island, or the bit on the equator just off the west coast of Africa. And yeah, you don't get to see very much because I don't have the OpenStreetMap data for Africa. I think I did download a shape file for the whole world so that I would at least be able to see, when I zoomed out far enough, like where I was in the world to be able to go and find, yeah, and you can maybe just about make out some tiny differences in the kind of in the northwest. So I've obviously got the Lancashire and Greater Manchester side of things, and as we zoom in, you can see that actually we've got some map tiles as well as just the shape outlines for some bits of the northwest. And that should just get better. So this is what the cycle OSM, I managed to click the wrong way. And yeah, this is all very slow. I think it was generally faster than this when I wasn't asking my computer to do quite so much work. Are you still with us, Ross?
Yes, I'm here. I've muted.
Right, no worries. So yeah, I'm just slowly getting into doing some stuff. And now I suppose the thing with this, this is like I can build map tiles. So now I can change map tiles, and in order to do that, I need to know what the hell I'm doing, which is going to get interesting. I suppose actually at the moment yeah, maybe what I should be doing, I guess, yeah, today, given there's not a huge amount of time left, I might just do a bit of experimenting and seeing if I can change some of the map tiles to make something a different colour or something like that. And then what we probably need to do is actually get a new to fork the repository, because at the moment the one in that I've got here, this Cycle OSM Carto CSS style, like this has got all of the stuff to build the Cycle OSM stuff, and it's a clone of, like, basically it's pointing at the Cycle OSM repository and GitHub. So if I don't know what's, like, there will be a whole bunch of stuff that's changed, I suppose, because there'll be, yeah, so the project.mml I've changed, and then there's a bunch of files that are new and don't exist in the normal repository because there's things like the OpenStreetMap data that are downloaded and stuff like that. I don't know what the difference is. Let's see what I changed to project.mml. What did I change? Oh, okay. It turns out I needed to change the names of the polygons slightly to get the land polygons to turn up. So yeah, so I've made a slight change, but obviously these changes, I don't want to push them back to the Cycle OSM repository. I mean, one, I won't be able to because I'm not a contributor on that, so I doubt I'll have permissions to do that. But two, they, especially once I start making more changes and changing like the land types and colours and things, and making it less cycling focused, they are not going to care about all of my changes. So what I should do is I should run through these steps again that I've taken to get this sort of stuff up. I mightn't need to run through too much of them because I can probably it's all going to be pointed at the same data set and things. But I should, yeah, get my own repository. In fact, yeah, I'll work out if this is going to work first before I go to the trouble of forking the repository and building up a new one instead. but basically, I like, yeah, this is, so these are what the map tiles look like, and I think, and I'm now kind of flying pretty much as blind as anybody else is. Uh, like I think all these MSS files and maybe the YMLs and stuff are the ones that are interesting. So I mean, what have we got that's MSS? Like, I don't know, it just looks to me like these are probably like the MSS is probably like kind of map style sheets, like instead of CSS, cascading style sheets you'd have for websites. And they've got names that look familiar. So let's just have a look at changing roads.mss. So I haven't ever played around with this before, but luckily I assume the double slash is a comment like it is in C++ and various other things, and presumably, I mean, at some point I am going to have to go and read up about what this style sheet stuff is, but I'm just, the first step is we can just do a bit of playing around and see what happens. And a lot of these zoom things presumably are like what zoom level on the map you are. So if we look at the map, we can see like zoom level 1, like usually it shows up in the URL on the things. You get to see that in OpenStreetMap quite a lot. Like, so this is the zoom level, and then this is the let me not drag that around. Drag that around. Yeah, so this is the zoom level, this hash 14, and then this bit is the lat long for the center point of the map. So this will update as I drag it around. Yeah, when I let go of it, it's gone to 53.422 now. And then in this particular cosm tick, I don't know my way around this very much, so I don't know what we can do. And like, what can I inspect? So I can, so I can turn different bits of it on and off by the looks of it. So if I turn that off, okay, I've only got show all. Maybe I need to turn the data inspector on. Probably don't want to do that, it's probably going to take ages to do stuff. Let's show tunnels. We'll show just tunnels, and that should hopefully. Right, there we go. Cool. So there's a whole bunch of tunnels, and obviously there's a few under the river. That is the Wirral loop of the railway. So there's like that doesn't show up on the. I turn the data inspector off. Like you don't get to see the Wirral loop that runs. So the actually it's not showing the railway tunnel at all on this style sheet, because there's the railway tunnel goes from like Hamilton Square to James Street, and then the Wirral loop goes through Moorfield Station, Liverpool, Lime Street, Central, back to James Street, and then back under the water. So yeah, like this, the map isn't showing that at all, but the data does have, when it eventually reloads, does have the information about where the railway line goes. God knows what all of those little are they the Williamson tunnels or something? Like, it's just like, so mostly I think what I'm going to do for the rest of the live coding session is just poke around with OpenStreetMap data. So okay, this is probably going to be like what I'd been thinking of doing was like, I can go and just hack around with the MSS files and see if we can make the map look different. And maybe I should still do that, but this is kind of interesting as a way. I suppose this is what this tool is for, is to let you kind of pull out various bits of the data, so you can kind of go, oh, actually, yeah, we should show the tunnels. Like, I don't think we really should, but especially not the railway tunnels, because they're not that the tunnels in general aren't going to be very useful for seeing what the different land uses are. Like, it might be worth showing the ones under the river for the railways and the cars, just so that you can kind of orient where you are, but it's not useful to show where the loop line goes. But it's kind of neat that you can get that data to then go and look in and things. What other things can we do?
Sorry, Adrian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just updated the README, but I can't push it yet. But I think it's a pending pull request, so I can't do that either.
Yeah, interesting.
Pull crammed down from 2.2.1 to 2.3.
Yeah, but you should be able to generate a pull request as well as Dependabot. I'd have thought. Let's. I don't know. Let's. Does it? Let me just comment on that, so that I've got that note made, and then go back and because you're allowed to have more than one pull. So actually, let's do that. Let's do this. Let's get advanced with this shit. Let me work out how I make you a presenter, and then you can present, and then we can see what you're up to, and then we can walk through and try and solve the problem. So I've stopped screen sharing now. I assume you've seen, which means that you should be able to start screen sharing. Which is cool, because this means that we can, well, one, you'll have moved the project forwards, whereas all I've done is poked around a bit with the map tile and gone, oh, it's cool, oh, I can see your screen. And two, we can, we'll have shown the power of like collaborative live coding or something, which I'm sure somebody else is already actually doing, but nice. Okay. See, but you've is this your fork of it, or is this?
No.
Okay. No, that's fine. So I think the reason you can't create a pull request is because, like, if you quit from that for a second, or just get back to a terminal command prompt. Sorry, I was meaning. So if you do git space branch, and then return, just hit enter. Let me just make that a bit bigger so that other people might be able to. Well, I don't know if that's going to work or not. How can you do what? Oh no, I was saying that I'll make it. I've made it bigger on my screen, because it's my screen that's getting captured and sent to the internet. So like, I have a feeling that the chat window might be obscuring a bit of it, but hey, let's not worry too much about it at the moment. So you're on the master branch. So the reason you can't do a pull request is because you haven't, like, it's not on a separate branch. So you'd need to have created a separate branch, and then you could do a pull request of that branch. But that doesn't matter, because all you need to do is, like, and especially because this is like it's not exactly a throwaway project, but it's not a super production critical, like we need to do branching for all the changes and so on and so forth. And I suppose I'm just developing on master rather than developing on branches and doing a pull request to pull them in. So yeah, don't worry about git branch. That was to see what branch you were on, and just to double check that you were on the master branch. And then git status says that you've got your like one commit ahead, I think, doesn't it? If you do git status. And so all you need to do is do git push. Ah, okay. Ah, right. Okay, so that's right. Well, we can solve that. And what do I? Ah, yeah, exactly. I need to add you to the project. You can't see my. Let me just double check before I start typing in passwords. Uh, that yeah, okay. I can see your screen. You can't see my screen, or like it's sharing what area of your it's sharing that window, I suppose, is the bit that's going live. So what I can do is I can go back into. Are you not part of the Liverpool UK organisation? And it might be that I need to give. Oh yeah, you are, aren't you? So, so you are listed as a member. So let me see what. Okay. Let me just. Yeah, like I think mostly I just need to work out to give you. So you can be an owner or a member. Right. Okay. So maybe I just need to give you access to that repository then. Let me go into the repository and settings, I assume. Manage access. Now I do want to save that to Pinboard. Click on the correct button this time. Okay, so okay, that's good. Yeah, because it says all 19 members can access this repository with rights access or something. So, okay. Oh, that's fine. Well, what had you done then? Excellent. Cool. So presumably I can go and look at the 15-minute city one and scroll down, and there is a getting started section. Boom. Very nice. Cool. Yeah. Should I go back to playing around with data and sharing that?
I might have to just go. Well, I'm not going off, but I'll be not at my desk.
Yeah.
So I go down.
Okay, that's fine. I'm trying to work.
Hello. I'll follow on my phone on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
It's alright, because I can hear the dog getting restless downstairs.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. And actually, I'll probably switch back to my different scene then, in order to, and then I won't need to worry about sharing my screen on Big Blue Button, because you're not going to be here. So that's cool. Let me
I'll see if I can get onto my local website downstairs on the phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, cool. So is that working? Yeah. That's fine. Right. Smart. Cool. Well, yeah. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for doing some actual work on it, which is more than I will have achieved by the end of the session. But
It was nice for me to just get up your own little site and pull
Yeah, and Jekyll is kind of like cool for those sorts of things. I do really. I mean, I like it partly because it's Ruby and I can then hack around with it. But like, there's a little tiny Ruby script which I didn't. Yeah, didn't talk anybody through, which does generate, like, basically it iterates through all those data files and makes a call to the OpenTripPlanner website to say, or the API of the OpenTripPlanner instance to say, generate the isochrone for like this center point, and then it's saved, and then that'll get given a GeoJSON file, and then it saves that in a like on the web server, as it were. So you end up, like, if you like, now that you've got your stuff up and running, Ross, you'll have a site underscore site folder, which is like the built site, and in there'll be, I can't remember exactly where they are now, but I think there might be an isochrones folder or something, which is then and then inside there are a load of GeoJSON files, and so they were all generated, like, there's a bit of code in, actually let me go and find the 15-minute city repository. I think that's in underscore plugins. Yeah, there's a generate isochrones.rb, which is the Ruby file that goes and basically, when the site's getting generated, it works out if there's an isochrone data set and iterates through all of those, and you can see there's the bit where it puts out the skipping Null Island stuff, which actually will be okay if you're in London, because it checks to see if both the lat and long are 0 before it skips it, and then it prints out, like, which area it's doing, and then there are some extra little bits that it does a loop for the reduced mobility, the walking, the bicycle, and then for each one of those transport types for each area, it generates a URL, which the ISO URL is the kind of the OpenTripPlanner API call, effectively, and then it opens that, reads the data down, saves it into a file. So that builds up, basically builds up a load of isochrone files, and then the index.markdown has some stuff in there that will, when it where's the index.markdown gone to? So there's let me look at this raw rather than the stuff. We should probably at the bottom, there's a whole load of JavaScript at the bottom, and one of the things that it does is it will, like, when the page loads, it has an array of areas, and there's a bit at the bottom that says load the isochrones, and that just iterates through all of the areas that it knows about and generates pulls in each of those files that got generated earlier, so it, like, downloads them from the Jekyll website that you've built, and then leaflet.js is what draws them on the map. So yeah, that's how that stuff works. And I suppose, actually, we're kind of now at 5 to 4, and it feels like that might be rather than me spend 5 minutes just kind of going, oh, cyclosm, you can do poking around with stuff, which you can do poking around with stuff, and it's kind of interesting, but it feels like that's a suitable point at which to go, like, call it a day, given that, like, this should...
One thing I've noticed,
Yeah.
when at some point it regenerated the isochrones in the city centre, and then it sort of said failed to open TCP connection to trips.mcqm.
Oh, okay.
Do you want me to just dump that in an issue?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, and it's interesting the because trips.mcqn.com. No, well, like I can't remember if that. I think that still exists because that's what I called the server initially, and then I decided that it wasn't really about trips. Like it was when I was running Open Trip Planner, but mostly it was about 15-minute cities. So, but I think I just created another CNAME in the DNS stuff so that you could use either of those. I would have thought, but
Yeah, for some reason it's refusing to connect now, so it's not rebuilding.
are you still running Jekyll?
Yeah, but now when I try to run Jekyll,
Mm-hmm.
it's saying please append to trace to the server.
Okay, because it's crashing at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's already. Do you want me to share your screen at the minute?
Yeah, you could do. Yeah.
Just do the same what he's doing.
I think the problem. I think the problem is that the Open Trip Planner instance has crashed. um,
It's been generated by Synchrons,
mm-hmm.
Ruby script. It's not. There's a connection refused.
Yeah. So I think if you, I don't know if it's quite finished yet, but basically I've just gone in and, no, it has. Well, I did restart it and then it has crashed again. So I think what has happened, and let me stop running Mapnik, which is then going to cause a whole load of stuff to complain at me. Let me quit that for a second. So I think the problem is that the development server isn't really beefy enough to cope with both running Open Trip Planner and running Cosmetic that's doing the other stuff, and I could up the amount of memory on it and stuff, but it would cost me more to run, and
Just messing about it.
yeah, so I think in a moment, let's see if it manages to get up and running. I've restarted Open Trip Planner and I've killed off Cosmetic for now because I'm not going to do anything more with it, having given that we're at the end. So I think it's running now. Oh no, actually building street graph from OpenStreetMap. So I think it's maybe still building.
Thanks, that was good today.
That's cool. Yeah, thanks for joining. And
I enjoyed your first hour where you were just talking about how you chose the sentinels and stuff.
Okay, that's good.
So you don't normally get to format.
Yeah, I guess not. It was reasonably in.
Obviously there, people do it. It's just you don't always see it.
Yeah, I suppose it's useful to know that I can just like ramble on about things and explain the project. I suppose because mostly what I was thinking was there could be people like yourself and who knows who else, they'd be like tuning in, and so I need to do a bit of scene setting and explaining where things are. So
Well, the rambliness was quite good because if when you're presenting a project, you don't necessarily ramble.
because you've actually thought about what you might want to say and tried to work out through it and stuff. Yeah.
It takes you back along the story of
Yeah.
setting up the data, doesn't it? So
Hmm.
It's nice that you can look for that somewhere.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think that's been also an interesting thing to explore and work out OBS Studio and things, because that could just be a way of doing make a night or general talks about stuff. You might want to. You've just restarted, haven't you?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, that's
on
cool.
its go.
I know, I can see. uh, so in the terminal window, there's just been loads of.
I really want to find Null Island in Sefton Park.
But Null Island isn't in Sefton Park.
So like Liverpool's full of Null Island.
Well, the other thing you could do is help out with issue 4, I think, is it? That is, find all of the center points. Because I don't know whether there's all the center. Actually, yeah, I guess Sefton Park's probably one near you. I don't know where's the center of Sefton Park as a general area.
I did like how Steve's Chippy is the centre of Eggbert, because it actually is.
Right. And that's kind of interesting because Steve's Chippy, like, because to my mind, well, I mean, it's very close to Sefton Park, isn't it?
Yeah, that's like, yeah. My sons, if they were in Sefton Park, probably would say that Steve's Chippy is quite important part of Sefton Park.
mm. I mean, I was wondering whether alternatively Sefton Park might be like Lark Lane, because that feels like it's a centre of stuff around, especially because St Michael's isn't an area. I mean, it could be an area. Like we could add something. Maybe that would be a thing to do. Would be to change the Sefton Park one to be St Michael's, or then I'd need to work out where the centre of St Michael's is. But maybe we should make the Sefton Park one be Lark Lane, because that feels like it's a centre of a neighbourhood that people talk about lots, isn't it? But then where on Lark Lane? Suppose would it need to be Keith's on Lark Lane or something to be the centre?
Still here, just not
Yeah. No, that's all right, and I'm sort of mindful of thinking about the fact that actually, and now we're at 4:05, so we've perfectly um,
yeah.
just ticked over the hour, and probably to about the point where I managed to work out where the live streaming was and start streaming properly, or start doing something. So yeah, maybe we should just call it a day then. So no, thanks, thank you. And then I'll work out when next to do something like this. Maybe not as long. Maybe who knows. But yeah, it's been good. Cool. Right. Well, I shall switch to the standby thing and then stop streaming. So yeah, thanks for joining us, Ross, and thanks for watching. Anybody who has been watching, and yeah, take care.